Well, good morning everyone, and welcome to this edition of Blaine County Survivor Man. Hey guys, thanks for watching. Guys, today on this edition of Blaine County Survivor Man, I'd like to show you my blacksmith shop and tell you how I set it up, tell you about what size it is, just a general few techniques on what you got to do to get your blacksmith shop set up. First of all, I want to show you my forge. Now, my forge is an extension of a 48 by 48 extension on the outside of my shop. My shop is 10 by 10 by 8 feet high. What I did was I took some bricks, cinder blocks. I took those cinder blocks and I stacked them up to the height that I wanted my forge. I didn't put any mud in these down here. These are not mudded in. I just made an open space down there to store my coal in, and a place to put my forge fan, because this is an electric forge, of course. And then I come up on top of those blocks and I laid a piece of sheet iron there to cover the whole thing up so that it will hold my coal bed up. I drilled some holes in it, welded a piece of pipe on it, a T, so that I could get the thing to, so I could hook my fan up to it. By the way, my fan is just an old hand dryer fan that I found a few years back, and it still works, so I decided to turn it into a forge fan, and it was pretty easy to do. On top, I did mud another set of 8-inch blocks around the sides, of course, to keep the heat back away from the sides of the building. The building's just framed up out of 2x4s on the corners, and the rest of it's just tin. And it goes straight up through the roof there, through a vent that I made I made it square because I have a little sheet metal brake that I use to do that kind of stuff. But anyway, I put that in there. I designed my forge pot on an angle so that the fuel would slide down towards the fire hole there, and I wouldn't have to control it that much by poking and tamping at it when I'm working with something in the forge. Now, the fan, guys, what I did to it was, let me step right over this way. Hope I'm not out of the camera shot. Anyway, I designed the fan so that I could turn it up and down. And how I did that, to control the flames, I'll turn it up there, let you hear it go up. I'm doing that with a dimmer switch, just like you use to dim the lights in a house. You hear it go down. That's the easiest way I found to control the air in your forge, especially when you're welding. You want to get something hot really quick, you turn that fan right back up. Now I'll turn it off so it won't make so much racket during this little video right here. But anyway, that's the way I designed that. This forge pot is just actually sitting right on top of that steel plate, and then I've just got dirt all the way around it. I can lift that pot right out of there if I want to, clean everything up and dump it out. Now, my table, my workbench table right here, goes all the way down one side of my building, 10 feet long and 2 foot wide. The thing is 3.5 inches thick, and I have steel sheeting on top of that. The reason I've done that is I can draw out projects on top of that piece of steel sheet, be working on them, lay them down, and see what kind of pattern, or see if my pattern is working right. Now, when you set up your anvil, you want to set your anvil up so that if you're a young man, especially, to where when you put your hand down like this on your waist to your side, that anvil is right at the top of your knuckles. That's where you want your anvil to be. That way you get the force of the blow every time you put your arm down, and it's not way up here, where you're not really getting any force of the blow, because when you're doing heavy work with a sledgehammer, hammering way up here doesn't work out real good for you. I've got mine set up here on a 1-inch thick steel table. And I do all sorts of things. I make knives. I'm going to show you a couple of my tools. This particular tool right here is called a flatter. And guys, you can find these things at flea markets. I found this one here for $5. It didn't have a handle on it. I've got a 48-inch wood lathe in my other side of the workshop where I make my handles with. So that's what that was used for. Here's one that I made before I found that one. I just took a sledgehammer and welded a piece of steel to this one to make this one. And these things work really good. You can find all sorts of hammers. You're going to have different types of hammers to use, ball pins, cross pin hammers, to do different drawing out work. Here's a sledge that I made. Put that short handle in that sledge, and that's for drawing out stuff really quick. Now, also either find or make you some drift punches, because all kind of holes that you need to put in hot metal, you just do it with a cold punch. You just take that punch, get that metal cherry red, and drive that punch through there, and you knock your hole in there. And then if you want to make it bigger than what it is on the tip, this drift punch, you just keep on driving it right through that square hole on your hardy hole on your anvil, and you drive it through there until it gets to the size you want, and that's called drifting out. See, it's a little down here, and then the farther you go, it just drifts the hole out. Of course, you got to have tongs, and you can usually find these at a flea market for anywhere, if they're any good, by the way. I always look at them to make sure they're good tongs, but I found these, I think, at a flea market for something like, I got them for $6. Also, you want to make you some hot splitters, and you need that stuff to instead of drawing out something to the shape that you want, you just simply mark the shape, get the thing cherry red, get you a helper if you got one, and take your hammer and just hot split your metal into the design. And there's plenty of those things that you can do. Now here's a splitter, right here's a splitter with a handle on it. I need to draw this one out and make it longer now because it's getting really short. So that's one of those things that you're going to have if you're going to do a lot of shaping of stuff in a blacksmith shop. And I've got all sorts of punches here. This one's a horseshoeing hammer. It's curved on one edge right there so that you can push the metal out in the design that you're trying to make. This particular hammer right here, I picked up, a gentleman gave it to me years ago, and this come from one of the CCC camps. And I don't know if it come from West Virginia or Virginia, but he gave it to me, and it's a nice little hammer for finishing out welds on small projects. But anyway, CCC's camps were set up years ago to just help build roads and stuff like that, and build bridges in the old days, back when during the Depression. Here you got to have some type of vise. So I've got a post vise right here that I picked up out of the garbage a man was giving me one time, and I restored it, and that's what I use in my blacksmith shop. That goes in a hardy hole, and that's like turning, or if you're bending something, let's say you're going to bend those tong handles, get that piece of stuff red, put that down in the hardy hole, and you just turn that around, of course, and bend the object without hammering it over the horn of the anvil. And those are some of the things you need. There's another one. You just stick it down in the hole in the anvil, stick the rod through it, turn it around, bend it. Or if you want that shape, you can turn that particular thing around. If you want that hole in a piece, you can put that down over the square hole of your hardy hole and drive your piece of metal through it to get that round shape. Also, you're going to need a chisel plate. That goes on top of your anvil. So when you're doing your hot chiseling, like I showed you there, there's a big long hot chisel, you won't cut into the top of your anvil and damage the top of your anvil. And those are some of the things you're going to need. Another thing, guys, is you can set your, I've got my borax setting close right here so that I can do my welding. I've got my lead pouring stuff, soldering irons for soldering, spoon that I use to put the flux on the material that's in the fire. The brush is sitting there. Of course, my fire shovel, you got to have one of those. I just made that one out of a piece of tin. I took an old rusted down fire shovel one time and drawed the pattern out on it, and then simply cut it out with a pair of tin snips and put a rod right in there and shaped that handle. Now, I've had that shovel right there probably, I know I've had it 30 years, and I'm still using it. By the way, I set up since 1977, 78. I've been setting up blacksmith shops around places where I moved for that length of time. But like I say, like I said in one of my videos, I'm not really a blacksmith, and I don't call myself a blacksmith. I just know a little bit about it, and helping people out over the years. I can sharpen, you know, their tools, their picks, put ends back on their shovels, cut them down, draw out axes, old axes and things like that. And that's some of the things you can do. And especially for hunters, you can get into making the things that the little triangle shaped pieces of rod stuff to hang deers with, and hunters really buy those things. But my specialty is just making knives. But anyway, that's some of the things that you can do in your blacksmith shop, guys. It's really an art. I really like the fact that blacksmithing is one of the arts that's been around since the beginning of known man, because they just, you know, found out how to use metal and make metal objects, and that became a traditional thing, because they just, you know, metal things last longer. And another thing is, if you can imagine, Lewis and Clark dragged the blacksmith shop all the way from St. Louis, Missouri, guys, all the way to the state of Oregon where they were going to have a blacksmith shop to repair their tools, to just, you know, to make trade items for the Indians. And that's what they did. They drug it all the way. I'd hate to have been the guy that had to carry the anvil across the mountains up there to get that blacksmith shop all the way to Oregon. But you have to admire these people with the spunk they had to get all this stuff done. But blacksmithing is an art. Guys, I want you to practice. You people that are learning. My buddy Jamie out there, Jamie Morton out there, set up his Red Key blacksmith shop and doing some good work. So guys, have fun doing this. Be careful. And that's another tip from your Bland County Survivor Man. Have a nice day.